Leo Carlsson is officially the highest paid player in the entire NHL, and it was not an easy path to get there. If you've been paying attention to the league at all the last few weeks, you know that the top story that's been going around is the fact that the Philadelphia Flyers offer sheeted Leo Carlsson, the number one center of the Anaheim Ducks, an $18 million contract for 5 years. Leo Carlsson was a second overall pick in the 2023 draft, right behind Connor Bedard. And since acquiring Leo Carlsson, the Ducks have made major improvements to their team and actually made the playoffs for the first time since 2018 and won a series for the first time since 2017. It is no question that Leo brings a significant amount of value to that team. Now, the most interesting part about this isn't the fact that there is an offer sheet. It's the story that got us here in the first place and what is unfolding in front of our eyes. $18 million a year is an astronomical price for any player. And it came within an offer sheet. That's how we got here, not by a regular signing through an offer sheet. So Leo Carlsson officially signs the offer sheet with the Philadelphia Flyers, which gives Anaheim 7 days to match that contract. If Anaheim doesn't match it, then Philadelphia will send over 4 first-round picks within the next 4 or 5 years. I forget. 4 first-round picks, consecutive picks. Now, knowing the story that broke today, we know that Anaheim matched this deal. But at the time, there was a large conversation happening whether should the Ducks sign Leo Carlsson to this deal or not. Is the price of getting 4 first-round picks worth it to let this player walk so you can have more room within your salary cap to manage more of your players long-term? Because that essentially is the problem for the Ducks if they match this. They are now strapped for cash going forward for the next 5 years, having to manage this $18 million contract with players who like Seneca and Gauthier who are going to need contracts soon. You can look at it this way. You can be the Ducks and say, we can let Leo Carlsson walk because we still have a really good foundation that we're setting here and we can probably replace him. Absolutely no, you cannot. Especially with what you're getting in return for the Flyers in exchange for Leo Carlsson, you will have 8 first-round picks for the next 4 years. The Ducks and the Flyers made the playoffs this year. The Ducks and the Flyers won a round this year. Those 8 first-round picks are going to be in the middle of the first round. They're not going to be valuable top 5, top 10 picks. Leo Carlsson, no matter how you want to spin it, is a fantastic player. He only had 67 points. Reflection of the potential or the player who he currently is. He's not a player that you want to lose. Going out and getting a number one center is arguably the hardest position to fill on any roster. Maybe you can argue your number one defenseman or maybe your goaltender, but it doesn't negate the fact that the number one center is an important staple in any roster. And Leo Carlsson is already at the age of, how old is he? At the age of 21 is already that person for the Ducks. And the odds of you going out to replace him with these 8 mid first round picks is not very likely. You could possibly trade him, but I think it might be a lot more difficult to trade for that asset with those picks. Now, it's interesting to note, how did we get here in the first place? Leo Carlsson was eligible for an extension after his 2nd year of his ELC. We're now finishing the 3rd year of his ELC. And to know why the Ducks waited this long to do it, I don't know. I'm not that involved in the bureaucracy or the exchanges that these teams have. I'm not constantly studying the Ducks to know what's happening on the inside. And it puts them in a bad situation because now you're trying to negotiate a contract with your star player and you're not striking a deal. And you're getting closer to the point where he can be offer sheeted. There's a time frame, and I don't know the specifics, but once you pass a certain point in the offseason, you are now eligible to be offer sheeted from other teams. And the Ducks waited too long to make this deal. Now you can argue, like, how could they wait too long? You have to. It's a conversation, right? And these things take time. You had over a year to make this decision. And the cherry on top of the entire situation is this: last season, after his 2nd year in the league, Leo Carlsson was willing to sign an 8-year contract worth $9.5 million a year. 8 times 9.5. And now he just signed 5 times 18. Less years, double the money. And why didn't the Ducks sign that with him? We will never know. But I'm sure they're regretting that now. And it's crazy to think. we're having this conversation about Leo Carlsson. I think he's a great player. I don't think the Ducks should have let him walk. That is my opinion on the entire thing. But $18 million for him? I don't know if he's worth that much money. Maybe he will be in 3 years. But to say that Leo Carlsson is the highest paid player in the entire NHL is a strange thing to admit. And I'm actually very fearful for how this is going to change the landscape of the NHL. Well, if Leo Carlsson's making $18 million, I should certainly be making that much money. How will this affect Connor Bedard's contract? What about Celebrini? Schaefer? Makar and Quinn Hughes are due for extensions. How is this going to change the landscape of what players think they're owed in the entire NHL? Now, I give a lot of credit for Philadelphia actually going out and doing this. I don't think they're in the wrong at all to go out and offer sheet Leo Carlsson. Philadelphia made the playoffs this year, and they beat Pittsburgh. A lot of people didn't think they would do that, but it was a surprise considering where they were at the beginning of the season, the fact that they made the playoffs. Because they weren't looking like a team that was going to even make it in the first place. And they went on a fantastic run and actually proved something in the playoffs, that they were not a team to be messed with. Despite getting swept by Carolina, who eventually went on to win the Stanley Cup, there was a lot of love going around for the Philadelphia Flyers and a lot of support for them to do the unthinkable. So we know Philadelphia will get better from here. Porter Mortone is going to enter his first season with the team, his first full season with the team, and there's a lot of other players to look forward to within their lineup. However, what they don't have right now is that true defining superstar. If they want to compete at all in this league, or at least compete for a cup, get out of the second round, which again, a lot of people didn't think they were going to win the first round, they need to beef up their roster. And I think they did the right thing by going out and getting this player that's been in a vulnerable position for a while now. A player who's been debating with his team back and forth about what his contract is owed, and the Ducks waited too long to make an offer, so the Philadelphia Flyers sprung on the situation and forced their hand. And there's a lot of speculation if this was on purpose from the Philadelphia Flyers, and because they have this long history of, players going back and forth between the two organizations. As of recent, that has been the case. I don't think that is the case at all. I think that this is a very reasonable move. If you remove all the history and context between the two teams, I still think this makes sense for the Flyers. So here we are. Leo Carlsson is a Duck for twice the price of what he originally wanted to be, and Philadelphia gets nothing. It is a crazy situation, and has been the top story for a long time. But we're at the end of it, and let's see how it works out. It is just unfortunate to see how this all came out. I don't know how this affects the relationship between Leo Carlsson and the Ducks, because it's just completely gone out of hand. At first, the team wouldn't sign 9.5, and now Leo Carlsson's coming back a year later, says, I want 15, but the team wants to offer him 12. And it's all this back and forth, and this is where we ended up. A lot of people are not happy with Ducks GM Pat Verbeek. A lot of sources are saying that he should be fired for this. I don't have an opinion on that. I think given the circumstance, there's definitely a lot of questions about, how he's handling things, but I think you had to give it at least a year before you can actually say that this is a fireable offense. But now this completely changes the conversation. How do we value a number one center? And speaking of number one center, we got news about Connor Bedard yesterday. Last week during practice, Connor Bedard took a nasty spill. He left the ice holding his left shoulder and was clearly in a lot of discomfort. What's interesting about this is that this time it is his left shoulder. If you remember from the season that just passed, in a game against St. Louis, he hurt his right shoulder. Last time he didn't need surgery and he missed 12. He missed 12 games. But this time it is the opposite shoulder, and this required surgery. And the Blackhawks put out a post yesterday saying, this morning Connor Bedard underwent successful surgery to repair his left shoulder. We expect him to make a full recovery in an approximate timeline of 4 months. So that puts us into early mid-November, well into the 26-27 NHL season. So the only way that I'm viewing this is, thank God that this happened during July, right? If this happened during the regular season, we could probably already kiss the season goodbye. But what I think it's interesting that not a lot of people are talking about is the fact that the NHL season is now moving on to an 84-game regular season. And they're not adding those games on to the end of the season. They're actually removing 2 preseason games in substitution for these two new extra games. So the season actually starts in late September. So Connor Bedard will miss plus 2 games than we already anticipated to miss if we were comparing this to an 82-game season. Connor Bedard will miss training camp, he will miss the preseason, and he will miss a good portion, probably a tenth of the regular season. In terms of what the Hawks are going to do to fill Connor's spot while he's gone, I don't know. There's not really a lot of options. I don't think they're going to trade for someone specifically to fill this role. It's only a tenth of the season. But there has been a lot of conversation about Patrick Kane coming back to the Blackhawks for one more year. Supposedly, he probably has 1 to 2 more years left in him, but that's all up to him. Now, you can argue bringing Patrick Kane in, it would change the locker room quite a bit. A locker room that's supposed to be now Connor Bedard's, because we're all kind of assuming that he's going to get the captaincy. Does adding Patrick Kane change that dynamic on a young locker room? I'm not too sure. But the Hawks are clearly in need of more offensive power, and maybe since Connor is out, adding Patrick Kane isn't the worst idea in the world anymore. It sucks. It sucks. It sucks. It sucks. It seems like things really changed for the Hawks last year when Connor Bedard got injured. Prior to the injury, he was keeping up with Celebrini with 44 points. At one point, he actually led the NHL in points, and at his highest peak, he was on pace for 125 points. It is just so sad to see that when he came back from injury, he clearly wasn't the same guy. And now a lot of people are putting in a lot of speculation into Connor Bedard's, legacy as a Chicago Blackhawk or an NHL player. He has had 3 injuries in 3 years. Of course, the first injury was to his jaw, which shouldn't really affect his performance, but a shoulder is a major piece. I'm not going to sit here and say that he is the next Derrick Rose, someone who's going to be injury-ridden his entire career. I don't see that happening. A lot of players have rough starts and eventually find their way, through it. Sidney Crosby was the same way. Jack Hughes is the same way. I have faith that this is not going to be a long-lasting situation with Connor Bedard, or at least I sure hope it's not. Whatever it is, there's a lot of doom and gloom with the Chicago Blackhawks fan base, and I understand that. But at the same time, is that we can't put all of our eggs into Connor Bedard. You can't have a team riding on one single player. The Blackhawks didn't only look at Patrick Kane. The Avalanche don't only look at McKinnon. There are other pieces in the Blackhawks that we should be looking forward to and be excited for. Maybe some players step up. Maybe some players overperform. There's reasonable faith to have that there are some players who are going to make a much bigger step next year with the Blackhawks, right? They're all getting older. They're all getting more experience. And I don't think that's put into the equation enough when we talk about the Blackhawks and their progress as a team. Everyone's getting better. Now, is that more copium on my end? Yeah, it is. It actually very much is. But it doesn't mean it's not true. It's just me trying to remain optimistic about the situation. Well, there you have it. 2 rebuilding NHL franchises with number 1 center conversations. It has actually been a crazy offseason. Considering what free agency looked like before we got to this point, it just didn't look like a very exciting offseason. But I'm going to be honest, this might be the craziest offseason I have ever witnessed. And it's been so much fun. So much fun that I'm actually sitting here recording my thoughts. Not something I was even considering doing 3 months ago. But with everything that's happening, I am all in. It's been an incredible thing to keep up with. It's been so much fun. Anyway, that's it. Bye.